Hello, you beautiful humans. Welcome back to It's Got Pockets. This is season 2. This is the podcast for you, for women who are driven, time poor, always on, holding the sky up, women who are not done yet, women who are purpose hungry, but women who are done with surface level empowerment, women who want truth, connection, and practical inspiration that meets you where you actually are. And I am your host. I'm Sarah Knight, leadership and transformation coach, consultant, and disruptor for good. Let's crack on. This episode is brought to you by the frankly fabulous Birkdale Insurance Group. They're a brilliant people-first business, and for them, that means having the important conversations about who gets a seat at the table. Let's crack on. Well, hello. Welcome to It's Got Pockets, another fabulous episode with a brilliant guest. A guest who we've been in each other's lives for quite a few years now. We're like talking and we were just talking before we came on the podcast of the fact that we've not actually had what I consider this to be an in real life conversation, because we mainly swap voice messages and rants and things like that. So I really needed to get the fabulous Gemma Ray on the podcast. Now, Gemma is an author, she's a mum, she's a kinship foster carer, and all-round brilliant human. She has her own podcast called Honest to God, and her life has changed pretty significantly over the last 3 years, which I think is what we're going to get into. But welcome, Gemma, to It's Got Pockets.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you can tell that Gemma used to be a radio presenter because she's immediately got that radio voice. Hello. Thank you for having me.
I can do my radio voiceover voice. I actually do my voiceover voice to annoy my husband. It's one of my favourite things to do.
Oh, give me a voiceover voice.
Sean Ray has once again put all of the pots on top of the dishwasher instead of taking the extra 3.7 seconds it takes to stack them in the actual drawers. If you'd like more information, go to seanrayisashithusband.com/wanker.
And here we have the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about on It's Got Pockets.
I'm joking. Sean, if you listen, he won't listen. He never listens to my podcast. I know your other half doesn't listen to yours either. He won't listen. But just on the small off chance that he is, Sean Ray, I love you very much. And you've been extremely supportive and you're not a wanker. But please do, just put the pots in the dishwasher. It would make me less ranty, ragey and resentful.
Yeah, and in case my mother-in-law ever listens to my podcast again, because she stopped listening to them because I was quite mean about James once. I also really love James, but seriously, when we're going to bed at night and one of the last things that you say to me is, I've put the slippers on the side because they can go in the washing machine tomorrow, might mean that you might wake up not breathing or not wake up. That would be the thing to do. You might not wake up. So that
slippers might be up your arse or in your mouth.
Yes, if you could fit them in there, but that would wake you through the smell that's coming out of them. Anyway, we already digress. What I want to start with is what I normally end a podcast with, but yours is too good not to start the conversation. So in every single podcast on It's Got Pockets, I always ask my fabulous guests what their 6-word memoir is, which of course comes from Ernest Hemingway's Shortest Stories Ever Told. And it can be a mantra, it can be your affirmation, it can be the thing that gets you through the day. And I just wanted to start with yours because it's too bloody good not to share. And it's the epitome of why I need you in my life. So Gemma, what is your 6-word memoir?
Said, and so fucking what? Loads. Because that is the affirmation, that's the mantra, that's the phrase that has stopped me losing the plot when I've been very close to losing the plot over the last 3 years.
Yeah. And it's relatively similar to one of mine, which is fuck it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the fuck it bucket as another one.
Put it in the fuck it bucket. It's like, so can you do your voiceover for a swearing warning on this podcast, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening, maybe potentially in the car with very small young children, or you have a disposition to ranty, sweary words, please avert your ears right now, because on this podcast, we will say fuck and bugger.
And all the other swear words in
yes. That was Bo Selector, that, wasn't it? On taking the piss out of Big Brother, going to say fucking bugger. You know, when it used to take the piss out of Davina McCall. Don't say fucking bugger.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it on steroids. So, yes. The other thing that I quite like is whenever I'm chatting to anyone and I'm writing it and I talk about being a little bit sweary, it always autocorrects to sweaty, which also, again, is true, you know. So, it said, like, often I've been sending texts or emails that say, like, and I am a little bit what I think is sweary, but it comes out with sweaty, which, is true of my midlife era as well. So tell me, I know the story, but tell the listeners what's happened in the last 3 years. What's been the big change in your life?
Oh, wowzers. So I was a marketing operations consultant, did a lot of strategy for businesses, had multiple clients, and I had done that whole elusive coming through COVID, pivot, and was finally at that point of 5-figure months, and I was going to have a 6-figure business, which was like the elusive holy grail that I'd been, aligning all my chakras and manifesting and pulling all the oracle cards to try and achieve. So in the summer of 2022, my husband had a vasectomy because we have one child, Blake, who is now nearly 15, and we were done. Myself and my husband didn't have like the most affluent of upbringings. We grew up on council estates and we've worked really, really hard. So it's like, right, one kid, everything's cool. We put him in private school, whether you agree with it or not. At the time, it was like, right, one kid, we're going to do that because here we are. My husband's had a promotion. He's at the highest level he can be at work. My business is going great. And then something happened within my family where I ended up taking my niece to school, who was 5 years old at the time. And I uttered the famous last words. I walked into reception after dropping her off and I was like, oh, hello. I realised this might be a safeguarding issue. Those 2 words, safeguarding issue. And I realised you don't know who I am. But I am her auntie. I am her paternal auntie. She's my husband's brother's child. And yeah, I'll be dropping her off for the next couple of days. So you need to know my face kind of thing. Unbeknown to me at that time, in reception at school were social workers, safeguarding leads, because she was about to be legally removed from her birth parents and they were looking for a foster family. Now, they didn't know that we existed. So it was a bit of a shock that, oh, who is this family member? Because in hindsight, I now know that when a child is removed, they will always try and keep children with family because that is the best place for a child in these circumstances. So she's like, all right, okay, can I take your number? So she takes my number and within an hour, I had a social worker looking around my house, looking at my blinds and the safety impact of my blinds and my plugs and my sockets and all of the other aspects of the home and where would she sleep and all that. And then my husband came home early from work and this social worker is sitting us down and explaining what is happening. Now, at the time, my niece's sibling was about to be born. And this is what had triggered the removal because there was another child on the way. And so he was then born the next day and the social worker came back. And what she did, she had the hospital, the maternity hospital, on the phone on her ear. So if you imagine she's balancing the phone on her ear and on her Apple Watch, she just goes like that to me. And it says, Tracy, manager, will auntie and uncle take the kids? Right? So she goes tap, 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 points it at me. And I just looked at my husband and was like, yeah, because I didn't know what does take the kids mean. Is it a week? Is it? And I don't know why. And I don't know where I got this from. But in my head, it was like, oh, it's going to be 3 weeks. I know why, because there was a court date proposed. And Mum was adamant that the kids were coming back to her, so I didn't know any difference. I was like, all right, yeah, we're just going to look after them for 3 weeks. 1, 2, skip a few, here we are 3 years later, and the children are in my care full-time, permanently. The little boy was born 12 weeks early, so he came to us from neonatal when he was 7 weeks old, which was really tough, really difficult. And all of a sudden, I became a brand new mum on maternity leave, but not. I kind of kissed goodbye to 80% of my clients. I kept on 2 clients who were not just clients, but they were good friends and they understood what I was going through. But that first, oh my goodness, those first 6 months, I would be feeding the baby at 3:00 in the morning and have my laptop at the side of me, completing work and doing work because I just had to keep going because we'd lost 80% of my income. We renovated our house a few years ago, so we had lots of debts. And it's funny because we weren't, for kinship carers, it looked on paper like we were affluent, doing well, but actually that was the peak of what we'd been working towards and were still working towards. We were still paying off the renovation. We'd committed to private school for our kid. And, I couldn't really take him out. He'd already had his whole life uprooted. I didn't want to take him from his friends. So, yeah, it's been a crackers and crazy journey of having to adjust and completely change my whole life. I've recently gone through another period of change where there has been another sibling born to my 2 little ones. And we thought that sibling may come to us. So as always happens with social services in these emergency situations, it was a phone call of, yeah, I think he's going to be with you tomorrow. So I left work that day, and that was 3 months ago. But I would never have left my job. So I still had my 2 clients that I'd continued, ramped up the work with them. I would never have left my job in a million years. But the last 3 months, I have not completely quit, but I've significantly pulled back. And it's had an incredible impact positively on the children and on me and on my husband. But the universe, I like to say, loves to take a giant shit on my head. We are in the middle of more building work right now. So the bills are piling up. And I'm starting to be in this little bit of a panic of how am I going to do this? Because even though I've removed lots of work, I actually feel more at my limit now than I think I ever have done. I'm wondering how the heck I did it all in the past. And I'm starting to panic about how I could do that again in the future now that I know how good it's been. And also, I kind of have got to this point in my life where I always believed I could be Supermum. I thought I could have it all. You know, I was the dickhead getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, doing my miracle morning routine and putting my mindset in the right place to be the best leader and businesswoman that I could and earn all of the money. And now I'm like a frazzled mess. And I'm not sure kind of where to go from here. And also because I'm a foster carer, I can't do OnlyFans because it wouldn't be appropriate.
No, and that might like come up somewhere regardless of like, you know, it might come up in the check-in. And also I'm sort of like, I think maybe like OnlyFans for feet is a little bit saturated now as well. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, the impact of that, not just for the small ones that are now in your love, care, security, but obviously for Blake and for you and your husband and everything that's gone on. It's no wonder that you realise you couldn't be Supermum. But I think what happens with a lot of us as Supermums is we take on the mantle and we don't necessarily count all the times our body and mind is keeping a score until it gets too late. You know, and for you, the big thing was the huge thing, a life-changing thing. And then for a lot of other women listening, it might be, as my morning is, the dog's just rolled in fox shit. And then that's the thing that's like, I just can't do anything else. And we always cope, don't we? You know, I always talk about cracking on. We always cope and we always crack on and we always move forward and we never stop until something stops us. And one of the things I really remember from a lot of the stuff that you do on Instagram is your stupid walk for your stupid mental health.
Yeah, I've not been doing a lot of them recently. No, surprise, surprise. I'm quite unhinged at the moment.
Yeah.
Because you're right, we do crack on, we crack on, we crack on, we crack on. And then something small happens and we crack open.
Yeah.
And that's the point where it's like, whoa. And I always say this, you never realise just how stressed you are when you're in it. It's only when you come through it and you're able to look back and go, oh, wow. But I think what I'm definitely getting better at now is realising a lot quicker when I'm in the thick of, I'm about to crack. I'm cracking on, everything's fine. Have you seen that meme with the dog where he's drinking a cup of coffee in the middle of a fire?
Yeah.
It's like, fine, this is fine, everything is fine. Cracking on. One thing happens, and before you know it, you've cracked open. I'm getting better, I think, at recognising the signs when the cracks are starting to show and I'm about to blow open. It actually happened to me last week. And I realised, I was like, so I started binge eating again. I've always had a terrible relationship with food. I use it to cope, and I realised I was binge eating in secret and hiding packets again. So I was like, oh. But then I also downloaded this game called Townville. Right now, to give a bit of context, I'm an author who, that past version of me, has written about productivity and discipline and getting shit done. And that past version of me was a powerhouse of that. And I've gone into businesses, I've gone into schools, I've gone into community groups, and I've taught the techniques to help you stop procrastinating and start living, which is the title of my book. And there I am on Townville, raising cattle, growing wheat, delivering jam that I've made. Because basically it's a bit like, do you remember Sims?
I do, yeah.
So you are growing a farming community. So, and I'm like, I would set a timer thinking my cows are going to be fed in the next 20 minutes and then they'll produce the milk. I would set a fucking timer to go and check back on my cows. Like
productivity, Gemma, productivity.
Ridiculous. You know, like a modern day Tamagotchi. I'm just like, what the hell? So I I came, it was last Tuesday, I'd broken a nail, so that had pissed me off. I've broken a nail. That was like the bit where I cracked open. So I text my wonderful friend Kim, who does my nails, whose house I'm actually in right now because I'm having building work done, and bless her, she said, you can come to mine if you want. So I'm like, Kim, I broke my nail. So I sit down at her nail station and she's like, you all right? I'm like, no, I've just had enough. And I'm just like wasting my life on a game called Townville. And she burst out laughing. And I opened it. I was like, look at all my corn crops. And she's like, you need to fucking delete that. I was like, I know. So I did. Later that day, I deleted it and I messaged it. I was like, Townville has gone. Just like, I just wasted so much time. But that was the point where it was like, oh, I am completely disassociating from all the stress and everything that's going on here. And I'm just looking for something else to distract me. And I think I'd only had the game for about 3 or 4 days. And that for me was good to recognise that so quickly that I was spiralling and that game needed to go. And so, yeah, I've been clean from Townville for a week and I feel a lot better for it.
I mean, isn't it like, as women, it's like, people are like, I'm clean from coke, I'm sober. And it's like, I'm clean from Townville. This is how I know I'm getting better. These are my steps to recovery. But I think that one of the things that we talk about a lot when we're talking about self-care, which, don't get me started, is we talk about, and I talk about this when I'm coaching and I'm training, if it's an intrusive thought, then we need to distract ourselves from it. And therefore, if we distract ourselves from it, then it allows our neural pathways to go in another way, blah, 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 blah. The danger of that is if we're spending all our time distracting ourselves from the stuff that's going on, actually, we are more likely to be cracking open, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Thing that is coming and it's coming at us. Me and one of my friends, we have the absolutely fine code, and it's like, if someone says to you, how are you, I've stopped saying I'm fine, because usually when I say I'm fine, that means I'm rocking in a corner somewhere, and I do a lot of that. And so we started having this code between us that was like, right, okay, if we get to I'm absolutely bloody fine, then that's the case where we need an intervention. And it's like, right, okay, that's where you come in and you need to delete the Townville and you need to decide what you're doing. You need to put the bags of crisps away. You need to put all the, like, my dad's not very well, and my mum started bringing me my sort of what do you call it, amber nectar, but not my kryptonite is Bourneville Dark mixed with Jamaican rum chocolate.
Hang on, pause. Sorry, where'd you get that from?
Okay, I don't know, I need to ask my mum, so I'll text you later.
Has it got real rum in it though? Because I'm sober for 6 years, so
I don't know.
I have to find that. If it's just a flavouring, I'd be well up for
that. We need to figure out whether that's a flavouring or not. I shall ask the mother. But that's my kryptonite. And what she does is she turns up and she puts it. So when my kids were little, she used to come on a Monday and Wednesday, and Mum used to always look after the kids. And she used to be, she's always been my crutch from that side of things. And it's changing now. The parenting is has begun. But when she turns up with my dad, and I open we've got a drinks fridge, and I open the drinks fridge, there's usually like a Bourneville Dark with Jamaican in there, and I think to myself, it's all right, I'm just gonna have one square, because that's what you're supposed to do when you're a grown-ass woman, isn't it? You just have one square of chocolate before you then go and you do some yoga or something. And so I was just gonna have one square of Bourneville Dark, and then before I know it, the whole bar's gone. And
it is. It's fine. It's fine. It's just 120 gram square, isn't it? Just
yes, it is. Yes. I mean, there's creases in it. I'm not sure what for. I think it's been ironed wrong.
Oh, terrible! Must have melted a bit.
Oh dear. So how's the family coped with everything? I mean, $1 million.
With great difficulty.
Yeah.
It's so to explain kinship care. A child can be looked after by a relative or someone known to them, and it not be foster care, them not be removed. So Professor Green, for example, is a big advocate for a charity that I support called Kinship, and he was raised by his grandmother. Lots of people end up, for whatever reason, sometimes raised by, aunties and uncles or grandparents, but they've never been removed. It's just been one of those arrangements. Yeah. So that is also kinship care. Kinship foster care, which is what I'm in, is where a child has been removed in an emergency situation and placed on a legal care order, and then we have been assessed as foster carers to look after that child. But then there's also something called a special guardianship order as well. I don't know if you've ever come across this term, SGO. You ever heard of it before? No. So you then apply legally to become the special guardian of the child in your care, and you take on the parental responsibility. So right now, the local authority, so the council where we live, are the corporate parents of my children, and I am paid a fostering allowance to care for those children under a kinship arrangement. Now, I'm very lucky that my local authority have put some really good groundwork in over the last few years, and kinship foster carers have been able to get the financial support that they need. We weren't at first. It took 6 months for us to get financial support. We completely burnt through our savings. We maxed out credit cards because I've obviously lost 80% of my income. But some people, this doesn't necessarily happen so much now in my local authority, but in the past, some family members have been told to go on a special guardianship order straight away. Well, when that happens and they've not done any training towards becoming a foster carer, quite often there's next to no financial support. But also what you lose sometimes as a special guardian is support in terms of mental health, things like educational healthcare plans. It can really restrict you. So we've taken our time to work towards a special guardianship order, but we are ready for it right now, because when you become a foster carer, social services are in your lives. So they come and inspect your home. There are very strict rules that we've got to adhere to, So in half term, my little one who's 8 now, we had a friend over to play, which is fine. But the mum offered for my little one to go and play at their house. And it's a really awkward conversation to have to say to somebody, unfortunately, we can't do that, because anybody who cares for the children in my care has to be vetted. They have to be officially part of our support plan. So that's been a bit of a challenge, even especially when I was working, just trying to juggle.
Yeah, because then you've not got that scaffolding system.
Nope.
For when I was bringing my kids up, that scaffolding system actually kept me, because I had my own business I was pregnant with Izzy, and I was a single mum. And actually, had it not been for that scaffolding system, for my friends who were, when I was rushing back from Manchester to try and get them in time for them not to be the last child in after school club, it was my mates that actually went and picked them up and took them back for tea. And, so to not have that, because as much as, and I know we talked before the podcast that your mum's around and is loving the new mantra of, and so fucking what,
yeah,
on steroids. But your friends and your circle and that community, that school community, becomes really integral to how you manage, especially if, like you say, you've suddenly lost all your income as well. You've not, it's not planned, has it?
There's another part to it as well, though, in that my children have trauma. They have adverse childhood experiences. So that adds an extra layer of complexity and complication. We've got attachment disorders going on. So it's not right for the children that someone just turns up to pick them up, because that can induce a heck of a lot of anxiety and stress that then presents in what others may perceive as naughty behaviour. It's taken me a long time to realise that sometimes children who've experienced trauma will ask for love and connection in the most unkind of ways. And there was a time, we were a year into this, and I cracked open and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I didn't want to put my husband in that position of having to choose between his family, because it's also, his mum and dad are also part of this as well. And I just thought it would be easier if I left him. It would be easier if I go back to my nice high-paid job and get a house near school, and I'll take my son and his mum can move into our house and look after the kids with him. And these were all the thoughts that were going around my head. And I was so lucky that, thank you, universe, for not shitting on my head at this point. There was a course that was new in my local authority called NVR, which stands for Non-Violent Resistance, which sounds much more serious than it is. Until yesterday, actually, I heard this report that in Durham, they've been using the techniques of non-violent resistance in children's residential care, and it has reduced the need for restraint by 70%, which is an incredible piece of data. But for me at the time, actually the title put me off. Non-violent resistance put me off a little bit. Even though some of the behaviours being presented were violent, it felt too serious, it felt too much. But by the time I was cracking open, I just thought, this might be the answer to my prayers. It was a 10-week course. It cost me money to do it because I was losing out on client work. But I thought, I want to be able to come back and say that I tried everything. Her favourite film is Zootropolis, and the theme of that film is Shakira's Try Everything. Try everything. And I was like driving along one day crying with her at the side of me, kicking off, and I just thought, I've got to try it. I've got to try everything. So I did. And the other words are, I won't give up, I won't give in till I reach the end. And I'm like, oh, so I thought, right, I'm going to do this course. And it was magic. And another name, which some parents call it, is not non-violent resistance, it's new vision for relationships. And it's about protecting that relationship and the connection between caregiver and child at all costs. But it sometimes does come at a cost because it doesn't come naturally to us to parent in that way. There are like 4 pillars of it. So you've got to resist the behaviour, you've got to persist, you've got to repair, and you've got to unite. Like those are the 4 kind of key principles of it. So there's something called relational gestures where you do things for your child just because. And actually some of the most important times to do nice things just because is when things have been bad, because often they are full of shame when their behaviour has been what we might deem, unacceptable. They're full of shame. Their self-worth is, down in the dumps. So to go in and go, hey, I made you your favourite hot chocolate, it kind of disarms that child. Like, oh, but they do still love me. It's about being there no matter what. And I could MVR is a whole other episode in itself, but it really was so magical for us. It not only did it improve my relationship with my niece, it improved my relationship with my son as well. It improved my relationship with everybody, really. And so I've loved it so much. I went back as a parent mentor. Again, I kind of sacrificed that earning potential of the 10 weeks and I went back to support others. And now I'm in the process of training to become an MVR practitioner because sounds a bit wanky this, but I want to use my pain to be someone else's power. We had such a really terrible experience in that first 6 to 9 months of being kinship foster carers. And then my local authority made some really positive changes. And it is better now for people. But if I can just help people with practical advice or even just give them hope, because I never realised it could be as good as it is now. And don't get me wrong, it is a roller coaster. We have up days, we have down days. But right now, I am a mum of 3 children. 3 children who I class as my own. I've only ever had 1 kid. I've never understood that concept of how you can love another child in the same way you love the first. And to feel that and to be able to do that and love those kids as my own, I have MVR to thank for that. But it is, going back to your question about family and friends and supporters and your scaffolding, it is so hard to communicate that to other people, which is why my mantra of, and so fucking what, is so important, because often the conflict that we have in those relationships between caregiver and child is that need for control. And she is an autonomy-seeking child because in her mind, her life is out of control.
Yeah.
I would argue that she's been through a grief, a really deep wound and grief and bereavement, not seeing mummy and daddy anymore. And so that presents as behaviour where she's craving connection, but she'll ask for it in the most unkind of ways. So it's about understanding that she needs control to feel less anxious. And sometimes I have to stand there, take a deep breath, and in my head go, and so fucking what?
Yeah. Well, that takes training in itself because
oh yeah,
that let's be honest, I mean, I am the shoutiest parent in the world, and that approach to parenting is brilliant and the pillars are absolutely brilliant. In practice, it's so hard to continually do it on steroids with what's going on with your family as well. And I only know a little bit about it because one of my friends adopted, and as a result, she's now gone on and done a PhD and looking at the care that adoptive parents have because it's so wanting, and that understanding within the system of, how early children suffer trauma and how early they acknowledge trauma and then how they present it, because because they don't know how else to vocalize it. I struggle to vocalize shit at 52. So
Yeah.
you're going to do it when you're almost still non-verbal. And equally then, bringing in those things into schools. My daughter works in schools with kids who are going through, she's had situations where she's been the person that poor little child has been dropped off in the morning by parent, and in the afternoon is going somewhere else. And
heartbreaking.
And those heartbreaking situations are not the norm, but there's more of them than I thought there was in the schools where she works. And actually, you see so often that the teachers haven't got that training to understand that behaviour that's being demonstrated is actually a need for something in their lives, as opposed to being naughty, and it goes right the way through. I see it in secondary school, because then even then there's even more constrictions that come into it. And I just think that understanding piece, like for what you're doing for the parenting side of it, but then surely there's got to be something else for the system side of it, the teachers and all the other stuff.
So my niece is in primary school, and the school are a trauma-informed school, and we changed schools to be closer to us as well. So 2 years ago she changed schools, but both the primary schools she's been in have been trauma-informed schools, and they blow me away. They are honestly the most incredible human beings I've ever met in my life, and they are a big part of our scaffolding. They're just incredible. And not to slag off my son's school, but he's in a private school. He's in high school. There's no consideration for what he's been through at all. There's hardly. I have to go in and remind them constantly that this has been really hard. This has been really hard for him, and his whole life has changed. He hardly spends any time with his mum and dad anymore. But through using MVR to just quietly connect with him, raise my parental presence with him constantly, he actually likes coming down and spending time with us now. And I feel really blessed that he's nearly 15 and he wants to hang out and he communicates with us. But you're right, there is a piece of work to do pastorally, I think, in some settings where I'm not going to change his school. His school are very old, traditional. That's why people send their children there. For the person he is right now, is it the right school? Absolutely not. I offered him the chance if he wanted to move. We looked into other schools, and I think he freaked out.
Yeah.
Actually, he's booked his ideas up this year. He came home last night. It's like, I've got the highest mark in my business studies across the whole of the year. And I was like, what the fuck? What?
Yeah. Who are you and what have you done with my son?
This is the kid last term. He was on report and he was on a tracker. And this year, I think that shock of, well, if you want to move and you want to do something a little bit different, there's a school in Liverpool that's a bit more vocational. It's called the Life Sciences School. I booked an appointment to go there. It's all about either working in healthcare or engineering, which is something he might want to do. And he freaked out. And so all of a sudden, all of his grades have gone up and he's not being a knobhead in class. And, it's great. But again, there hasn't been any kind of like work with him to make sure he's okay. And I do wonder whether if he'd have been in mainstream school, which is connected to the local authority, I do wonder whether there might have been a little bit more mental health support for him, because it has been incredibly difficult on him to go from an only child to, he calls himself a co-bro, so he's a cousin brother, he's a co-bro.
Yeah. I love that.
And he's so wonderful with the children. He's unbelievably wonderful with the kids. My husband works shifts, so often I have to solo parent. We call it a solo night. We have a different set of rules for a solo night. And he's just so supportive and wonderful. And I'm very lucky. But again, the MVR has helped with that, to help make sure that I'm not forgetting him amongst what is utter chaos at times.
And that's still, going back to Supermum. Well, first of all, what I wanted to say about your boy is that it's interesting, when you look at the psychology of it, when you give anyone a choice, all of a sudden they go, oh, actually it's my choice now, and therefore his choice is to stay in that school. And he probably did it really unconsciously, but the minute you give anyone a choice, they're like, oh, right, so I can make the decision, and it's not someone else making the decision and telling me how I need to be or what I need to do. And it's back to everything that you've just talked about with NVR. That's great. That's the right way. I want to say NRV in my head.
Yeah, NVR.
Right, I'll make it up and switch it backwards if I can. But, so there's that whole choice side of things that's really important. But going back to the Supermum thing, and what we were talking about right at the beginning is, we grow up with this narrative of we can have it all. We are the children of the feminist revolution, and we're the people that can do the jobs and crack on with everything and have the kids and still smile and do our fucking yoga in the morning and our journaling and all the other things that we do, and
28-step skincare routine. Yeah.
yes, and more skincare. Like, I did admit to my beautician last week that because I have a beautician, because I'm so middle class, darling. When I say beautician, I mean she does my eyelashes and my eyebrows, and once a year she does my poo. And probably less than that now. I'm 50. Doesn't grow so fast anymore. Oversharing, and
Love it.
Hot pockets. Anyway, she said to me something about taking my makeup off, and I said, "Sorry, what do you mean?" She said, "Well, when you take your makeup off at night." I went, "I'm still not comprehending what you mean. What do you mean? Do you mean when I get into bed and I rub my eyes to get my mascara off?" And she was like, "You do what?" And I went, "I'm so knackered when I get in bed. It's a choice getting in bed and reading or rubbing my makeup off with my fingers. And I choose to rub my makeup off with my fingers." And she's like, "No, you can't do that." I went, "Watch me." It's not
See me, I rebel in the face of skincare.
rebelling. So there, number 7. You take collagen. I give you a right good hand scratch of your eyes. But yeah, we have all these things that are put on us, and it's that, the life load, the mental load. How do you manage that along with the mantra? But
Here's one I prepared earlier. So
yeah.
It has, in the past, it's been colour-coded planners, lists, erasable pens. I have 2 whiteboards, one in the kitchen that gets done every Sunday for the week ahead. But my new thing, I've had an AI assistant for the last year. And it's a company called Shelpful, and it used to be on WhatsApp, but now there is an app for it. And basically, I just sit and chat with Shelpful. So here we go. Here's an example of one of my things. Okay, so today I have a podcast interview at 10:30. There's a lot of banging happening in my world right now, so I may need to do it in my car, which will be hilarious. I have to make sure I have a full phone battery, so please ask me at 9:45 a.m. to charge my phone, which it did. But so for example, Sunday, I was feeling very like a slug. That's the best way to put it. I'd run out of Gemma. I'd had 4 days of parenting the kids on my own. I was going insane. I was also in a bit of this isn't the life I chose. I miss my son. Oh, I could be building my empire out right now. And so
10 figures.
Yeah, it doesn't fucking matter. Just need to, why do we do this to ourselves? So I basically emptied my head on Shelpful and was like, this is all the things I want to achieve today. Remember them. And then I actually, I've done all of the washing. I have to say laundry because it's American. So I'll be like, right, I need to do this, and this. And then it comes back at me and it tells me, right, and it will say things like, okay, you've done this. Do you want a micro task? Shall we pick a micro task together, or do you want to brain dump where your head's at first? So it is a 2-way conversation between me and Shelpful, but then there's also a list. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I can see it.
Can you see?
For the people listening, yeah.
So, for example, do a relational gesture to Amelia. Do a relational gesture for Blake. Those are daily reminders, and I have them set for 7 p.m. to remind me, have you done something for the children? So, last night, for example, it came up and I thought, I've been a bit aggy with her. So I was like, do you know what, sweetheart? Let's sit down on the sofa and let's find a show to watch. So she did. She sat next to me for all of 7.8 seconds because then she wants to faff, because this is what she does. She wants to faff. She wants to make a den. She wants to make a room. And I had to sit there and be like, and so fucking what? She wants to make a den instead of sitting down. She's 8. It doesn't matter. What are you trying to control? You can just fold the blankets afterwards. Stop being a cow. Stop being a crank. Shut the fuck up, Gemma. And I'm like, that looks like a really comfy bed. Because then I start joining in and she's like, yeah, it is. And here's my door. And here's my bathroom. And I feel myself being like, just sit down. But it's again like, why am I trying to control this situation? And it's because in my head, it's my own expectation that's the problem. In my head, Shelpful has gone, do a relational gesture. And I've gone, wouldn't it be wonderful to sit and cuddle and have tactile connection while we watch a lovely episode? No, she wants to make a den. Why am I trying to control it? So I do have to sit there and be like, And so fucking what? But yeah, to answer your question, Shelpful, it's $9.99 a month. It was more actually when it was the WhatsApp version. But this helps keep my head on straight at the moment. Like I forgot the little ones, the toddler swimming stuff. Shelpful reminded me. So I was able to grab that before I came here to go and drop it off. It's ace.
Yeah. And I think that it's about finding the things that work for you to actually be able to do what you need to do and try and minimize the expectations that we put on ourselves of what we think our life should be like. You know, when I, you know, if I think about what I thought my life should be like in my 30s or even in my 40s, it's nothing like I imagined. But actually, it's reminding me that the present, talking to you here, like, yeah, let's be present. But it's so right in the fact that sitting here, offloading, chatting to you is actually absolutely everything I want right now.
It's the best.
And that helps, and that means that actually it's working. And finding things like the Shelpful or your AI app or things like, I mean, I think one of the top uses of AI now is coaching and counselling.
Yeah.
Which is
I can completely understand
brilliant.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I programmed my AI to know my. So I like a bit of spiritual witchy shit because, you know, when things are really fucking awful, and I'm not into Jesus, unfortunately, or Buddha or anybody else, I like to kind of imagine that there's something else out there that's going to help me. So I've programmed my Shelpful to know my human design profile. Which, if you don't know what human design is, it's kind of a little bit like astrology. I thought it was bollocks for years, but now I've been trying to live in alignment with my human design, which is to kind of sit back and respond rather than try and be this disciplined planning nerd, which I think is where I struggle with that past iteration of me and the new version of me, because we're two completely different people now that I've had all these extra, I'm dripping in children and extra pressure and stress. But yeah, I program it to kind of, I want it to know the whole me. But I am also very aware it's got a bias towards whatever I say. So I do sometimes have to say prompts like, imagine you are the other person on the other side of this, or imagine you are, how would you challenge me on this? And I think you can use AI for good on that. However, if you are in a place where you do need professional help, please don't turn to ChatGPT to get professional help. You need the nuance of a human being to help you see different perspectives and the other side of things, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that is, when you're looking at surviving and thriving, there's very little that can beat human connection. You know, like you were saying about, you know, being around at Kim's with your broken nails, you know, me actually being able to ring a mate and going, I'm absolutely fine. Me, you know, like me, my mate Nick was going through a load of stuff and just at the end of COVID, and we were both going through stuff. Izzy had just been through her accident and things. And we used to go for a stupid walk for our stupid mental health. But if it was really bad, we used to send each other a message going, I need to stop at the Scream Stop. And the Scream Stop, I mean, actually, I'm surprised I didn't get arrested, because the Scream Stop was, in reality, on a few occasions, a place where we used to literally go and keen and scream. You know, it was like one of those places.
Amazing.
And it was a residential area as well. So I'm surprised that at some point we weren't taken away somewhere. But I didn't very often, because by the time we got to the Scream Stop, we'd actually managed to alleviate some of the pressure cooker that was going on. But we've that human connection and finding someone to actually help or to hear what's going on without judgment, without saying, well, if it was me, this is what I would do. It's not fucking you, Doris. You know, actually is such an important fabric of how we crack on without cracking open, isn't it?
I think it's a lot of people obviously can't afford to do that. And I think something that is so easy and simple to do, and I'll give you an example, is to, if you listen to podcasts, if you're someone who likes listening to podcasts, is ask yourself at the end of it, what have I learned from that and how will I apply it in my life? So to give you an example, you did an episode with Jenny, the Canadian, who's a divorce coach. She said something that made me pause the podcast, rewind it 23 times and write it down, which was, I made the choice to trust myself. I made the choice to trust myself and know that it would all work out. And actually also ask myself, what was the worst thing that would happen in this situation if I didn't take the risk? And then do I trust myself to know how to get out of it? I was like, this woman is just speaking my language and sense. And I did. I stopped it. And I wrote it down and I stood there and I asked myself, I was like, do I trust myself at the moment? And the reason why I say this is because in my previous iteration of myself, talking about self-discipline, for me, self-discipline was about self-trust. Because when I trusted myself, when I actually stopped bullshitting myself and lying to myself or giving myself excuses, when I did the things that I said I would do, which is discipline in action, I built self-trust. And over time, the more you trust yourself, the more that you believe in yourself. And then when you believe in yourself, that's the magic, that's the sweet spot. So to listen to Jenny talking about that, I was like, fuck, that's the problem. I've lost trust in myself. Hence why I've been binge eating. Hence why I've been raising cows and sheep in fucking Townville. I've lost trust in myself, in my abilities. I'm letting that big angry imposter syndrome monster voice that's utter bullshit get in my head and think that the only alternative is to do pendulous tit clapping videos doing happy birthday on OnlyFans to earn money around the kids. And it's not true. I'm not pulling my finger out. I'm not doing everything I can.
Or your tits.
What? Yeah. Clap my tits.
You're not clapping your tits either. We decided that wasn't going to happen. You're not allowed anyway now.
I'm not. But yeah, I could do it though. Yeah. Happy birthday, dear Jeff.
For people listening to this, Gemma's actually giving me a live demonstration.
Yeah, sorry, I've got very large boobs.
But she has got a bra on and she has got clothes on, people, if you listen.
I have, yeah. It's a sports bra it's got a magnetic clasp at the back to hoik them up. Oh, you need this in your life. Panache, but they've stopped doing them. You might be able to get it on Vinted. It's got a magnet at the back. But if you're doing squats in the gym, you have to unhook it because otherwise it goes clip and it clips on the back of your barbell. Top tip.
Oh, okay. So, top tips is no tit clapping.
No tit clapping.
Magnetic clasps for our bras.
Unless you wear a pacemaker, you can't wear it.
Unless you wear a pacemaker or you're doing deadlifts in the gym.
Yep.
And
so fucking what?
So fucking what? But that's how we wrap it all up, Jeff. Yeah. That's how we wrap it all up. But the self-trust piece, because I'm conscious of time, this could be about 14 podcasts, I think, once we get going. That self-trust piece is a bit of a mic drop moment because we often mistrust ourselves, and question ourselves and second guess ourselves, but also don't give ourselves the time. And when I say time, I mean the 5 minutes to actually listen to the podcast and actually then ask yourself, what have I got from that? Is there anything I've got from that? Is there anything I've learned? Is there anything I want to inhale more of? Is there anything that actually I just want to reflect on? And give yourself that moment of reflection, that time to reflect on it, and then go, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm fucking brilliant, and I just need to keep being fucking brilliant and demonstrating it to myself. That's that act as if framework, is that you need to keep practicing it to believe it. And then when you've practiced that consistency and that self-trust for a period of time, all of a sudden your brain goes, I get this now, I believe in it. Which is all wrapped up in...
And so fucking what?
Thank you, Gemma.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
A beautiful, fabulous, frank and gorgeous guest. I knew you would be. I knew we thought for hours. There was absolutely no way we were going to be anything else. But thank you ever so much for coming on It's Got Pockets. And we'll have to do it again, mate.
Definitely. I'll have to get you on mine.
Oh, yes. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Let's do joint podcasting. Thank you so much. And I will see you again soon on It's Got Pockets. This episode has been sponsored by Birkdale Insurance Group, a people-first business with a powerhouse of brilliant, talented female board members bucking that male-dominated financial services trend. You can find out more in the show notes and at birkdaleinsuranceGroup.co.uk. Well, that's us for today. If something nudged you, brilliant. That's good. That's the whole point. A little moment of reflection, a little bit of peace, a little bit of power in your pocket. And if you're a woman with experience, running a business, leading a team, holding the blinking sky up, playing whack-a-mole at any given moment, and you're ready for a room that actually gets it, come and join us inside the Found Her Fire Society and Collective. Thanks for listening.